I can bet you that this particular history I'm about to reveal to you, a lot of people do not know about it. I can hit my full chest and say 70% of Americans, especially Black Americans, are not aware about these histories. And if you watch all of these videos from beginning to the end, and you think you are aware of this particular history, let me know in the comment section, because this is a deep research that I went into to be able to root out all of this. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sonia. If today is the first time you're tuning in, do subscribe, like this video, drop me a comment, and lastly, do not forget to share. Thank you so much for always coming back to watch my videos. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are the best, and I really, really love you from the depth of my heart. Every clips and stitches we're going to use in today's episode credit belongs to original creators of this video, and this video is just for educational purpose. For my special Black American people. Let's unfold what 70% of Americans do not literally know about, especially the Black Americans. Let's go there, guys, and I'll be back with commentaries.
One of the most disturbing Black history facts that they don't want us to talk about. In 1918, a woman named Mary Turner was lynched. Mary was 8 months pregnant at the time of her lynching. She was lynched for expressing how upset she was that her husband was lynched the day prior. Her husband's name was Hayes Turner. Hayes Turner was sent to lynching because they said that he was an accomplice in murdering a very well-known white farmer. Mary Turner was upset because she knew that her husband did not have anything to do with it. She was so upset, and rightfully so, at 8 months pregnant about losing her husband, that she threatened to take legal action against the mob who lynched her husband. This threat enraged the white mob, and the way that they took Mary's life was so inhumane, I don't even think I could explain it on this app. But I'll do my best because the story needs to be talked about. While lynching was typically done with the person standing right side up, they decided to hang Mary upside down. They then removed her clothes by setting fire to them. While Mary was still alive and hanging upside down, the mob took a large and removed from her belly. They then took their feet and stepped on the crying while it was on the ground. After all of that, the mob took their weapons and filled her body with holes. And yeah, this was 107 years ago. That's not a long time. Happy Black History Month.
You hear a lot of people saying that we shouldn't judge America's founding fathers with the moral standards of today because that would be unfair. It's a different time. But the moral standards of today existed back then. James Otis, the guy who said taxation without representation's tyranny, also wrote, "The colonists are by the law of nature freeborn, as indeed all men are, white or black." Benjamin Rush, signer of the Declaration of Independence, he said to be deluded into thinking that one race is inferior to another is so foreign to the human mind that the moral faculties, as well as those of the understanding, are debased and rendered torpid by it. Torpid means lifeless. Gouverneur Morris, whose pen wrote the Constitution, said slavery would bring the curse of heaven upon us. Thomas Paine inspired the American Revolution. He called slavery monstrous and slavers desperate wretches. Ben Franklin's friend Ben Lay called slavers the spawn of Satan to their faces. Then there were the men, women, and children enduring forced labor who petitioned numerous courts at the time, quoting the Declaration of Independence.
While Black women were keenly aware of their rights during all periods of the American history, the Revolutionary era marked the forming of a new nation and was a particularly important time for women like Belinda to exercise her rights. While the whites in the country around them boasted about life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, Black women used the courts and their feet, words, and actions to liberate themselves from the yoke of slavery. In the process, they took refuge in swamplands, Europe, the Caribbean, and Canada. Just like women in the early colonial era, Black women of this period understood that liberty was innate, and they tested the boundaries of slavery and indentured servitude. In 1763, Jane Banks of Goochland County, Virginia, filed a suit for her freedom. She was an indentured servant of Judith Leake and believed she would be free given the status of her mother, Mary Brooks, who was a free mulatto woman. Unfortunately, Banks lost her case and remained in Leake's custody. Why did I stitch this video stressing this point? Because many times it is often said that Black people did not resist, or that it was a choice, or that we can't judge the colonial era based off of the time period. The sad part about it is they knew it was wrong. They knew slavery was immoral, and they still chose to ignore Black voices who fought for their own liberation. In many cases, using the system that was created against them, which shows the hypocrisy and the bias that no matter the law of the land, that Black people were not to be seen as human beings, and the laws of freedom did not apply to them.
Have you ever heard of a Black town called Nicodemus, Kansas? I know I didn't. Let's get into it. Nicodemus, Kansas, a town that's still standing today as a symbol of freedom and resilience. So let me tell you why this story definitely matters. So picture this, after the Civil War, right? During like the Reconstruction stages where freedom was definitely promised, but it did not talk about or show that there was going to be safety or opportunities for Black people. Remember I was talking about that sad story yesterday and reminded y'all that things were happening in Alabama? Well, things are happening in Kansas too. Like people are not sitting down and waiting to find out. They are doing something. You're not going to help me, I'm going to help myself. Especially those who were formerly enslaved families. They were still stuck in the South facing like sharecropping, poverty, brutal violence. But instead of waiting for change, you know how Black people are, some of them created their own way. In 1877, inspired by the biblical story of Exodus. Yeah, a group of Black families packed up everything, y'all, everything that they had and left and went to Kansas. Raise your hand if you ever heard a story where people can just pack up and just move. It was always heard about us fleeing and leaving with just the clothes on our back and a little bit of food. Never did. This was the so-called promised land. They became known as the Exodusters. Never heard of it. Nicodemus was founded in the same year by 6 Black men, including a man named William R. Hill. They invited Black families to settle there, offering them a chance to live free from the terror of the South. I can just imagine it. Like they like, the hell with this. I'm going to Kansas. We about to create our own shit. Yes. Yes. But life wasn't easy. When they first settled, they found nothing but open prairies, right? No trees, no houses, nothing but endless grass. So imagine stepping off of a wagon with your family, knowing it was up to you to build everything from scratch with your own bare hands. They've been doing this for years. And build they did. They talk about us being lazy. Yes. And that laziness always gets to me. It's like, fool, we were building. We were what? Electricians, plumbers, we were carpenters, we were farmers. What are you talking about, lazy? Out there in that sun. Let me see you stand out in the sun with no sunscreen, because they didn't have sunscreen then. They sure had cancer though. And build they did. Nicodemus became a thriving community. They had homes, churches, schools, businesses. This is plural. It was more than just a town. It was proof that Black people could govern themselves, educate their children, and create thriving economies, even in the face of systemic racism. For a while, Nicodemus did flourish, right? As a beacon of hope for Black Americans across the country. I would have said if I didn't know about it, that if they did it in the past, we can do it again, but it's already being done. There are Black communities being built. There are Black people buying up land in the South, creating Black communities. I can't wait till one is done, because I'm definitely going to go visit. But that dream wasn't without struggles, right? The harsh Kansas winters and poor crops definitely tested the settlers, right? Especially when the railroads came. They built a railroad through other towns. Nicodemus, they bypassed, cutting it off from the trade routes. So many families were forced to leave in search for better opportunities. So that's that fear coming back in, because they know that town was thriving. You hear me? So they were like, how can we best hurt this town to make them disperse so they won't be strong as a unit? We'll build around them. We'll build this railroad around them so they can't get shit. See, hate, fear, and by that, the population of that town dwindled. So why should you care about Nicodemus today? You know, it's because it's a Black history that's been hidden. I have no clue about this place until now. It showed resilience, and it's a reminder of strength that it took to carve out a future when the world had tried to erase you. The world, yes. Nicodemus is still standing, recognized as a National Historic Site. Still don't know about it in its history being made. The only remaining black settlement west of Mississippi from that era. So what does Nicodemus teach us about self-reliance, especially about community? Like, how does this story inspire us to reclaim and celebrate our history? So let's talk about it in the comments, because these are the stories that show us who we really are. These are the things that they don't want us to know. I told y'all, if we get together, we can do anything. I want you to look up Nicodemus, Kansas. Learn about the Exodusters and how they built their freedom. Like, share this story with someone like me who's never heard of it. And if you visited Nicodemus or learned something surprising about it, please drop it in the comments. I am always going to be curious. So let's keep this story alive. Black history and hidden Black history isn't just about pain. It's about power, it's about resilience, and the determination to thrive. Nicodemus is proof of that. So let's keep uncovering these hidden gems together. All right? I want y'all to stay curious and definitely drop those comments. I want to hear from y'all.
Black babies were used as alligator bait. Yes, that happened in America, and it's way worse than you think. But it doesn't stop there. They turned black bodies into leather, shoes, handbags, belts. It's the history that they don't want you to know. For years, black babies were used as alligator bait. It wasn't just a random act. It was part of a systemic dehumanization. They made films, postcards, and even letter openers featuring this horrific act. But it didn't stop with alligator bait. Black bodies were turned into luxury goods, all made from the skin of African Americans. And the worst part is that it was normalized, was accepted, and it still impacts us today. How does it feel to know that black bodies were used to create luxury goods, turned into items for people to wear, sit on, or even use as accessories? This is the truth that they tried to erase. Black AF history brings it all to light. Are you brave enough to know what they've been hiding? Right now, Black AF history is 35% off. Don't wait. Grab your copy and learn the history that they didn't want us to know before it sells out. Plus, you can save an extra 20% off orders over $59. I grabbed 3 of these books, I saved $12, and I got free shipping. But hurry, because this offer ends July 7th. Don't miss out. This is the truth that they tried to bury. Don't let them win.
Will black people ever be able to be self-sufficient or independent? This question is obviously racist, but I will answer it as if it was asked in good faith. First of all, before emancipation, black people created the necessary infrastructure for their independence and self-sufficiency. In the year 1738, the first free black town was established in Mosey, Florida, which means that there was a free black town before there was a United States of America. The first black-owned media company, a newspaper, was established in 1827. All of this was before emancipation. Black towns and neighborhoods saved and circulated millions of dollars within their communities, like the Greenwood District in Tulsa, Oklahoma, North Nashville in Tennessee, Sweet Auburn in Atlanta, and countless others. There is a list way too long to fit into this video. And do you know what happened to those thriving, independent, self-sufficient communities? They were attacked by white folks. They were bombed. They were raided. They were terrorized. They were demolished. These independent, self-sufficient black communities were fine and had existed for a very long time. The real question is, will whiteness ever be able to be self-sufficient and independent without black oppression?
Black Americans were cannibalized by white Americans, believing them to be a delicacy. Have you ever heard of the story of Nat Turner? Nat Turner led the most successful slave revolt in American history. Unfortunately, he was captured and hung in Cortland, Virginia, but not before being tortured. After his murder, he was cut into pieces and his body parts were used for a variety of things. Parts of him were eaten, parts of him were made into belts, purses, grease, oils, and his bones were made into trophies and heirlooms. If you would like to learn more about the cannibalism of black Americans by white Americans, this book is the one to read. And learn up.
You ever wonder how Jim Crow started to crumble? Before Thurgood Marshall, before a Brown v. Board of Education, before the Civil Rights Movement, one man was laying the groundwork to dismantle segregation from the inside out. Meet Charles Hamilton Houston. And if you've never heard of him, just know that he's the reason that separate but equal doesn't exist today. Let's talk about the lawyer who went to war with white supremacy in the courtroom. Houston wasn't just born brilliant, he was shaped by racism. He served in a segregated army during World War I, where black soldiers were treated worse than prisoners. He came home knowing that if black people wanted justice, they weren't going to get it from white lawmakers. So he went to Harvard Law, where he became the first Black editor of the Harvard Law Review. Incredible. He didn't just want to be a lawyer, he wanted to train an army. Houston became the dean of Howard University's law school, where he trained an entire generation of Black lawyers, including Thurgood Marshall. His plan? Used the law against itself. He knew white America wasn't going to give up segregation just because it was wrong. So instead, he forced them to prove that separate but equal actually existed. And when they couldn't, it set the stage to strike it down. Houston led the legal attack on Jim Crow case by case. It's one patient man. Gaines v. Canada, 1938, the Supreme Court ruled states couldn't deny Black students access to law schools. Sweat v. Painter, 1950, it exposed that Black schools were nowhere near equal to white schools. McLaurin v. Oklahoma State Regents, 1950, it proved that separating Black students within white schools was still harmful. These cases, they were the foundation for Brown v. Board of Education. And even though Houston died before he saw that victory, make no mistake, it wouldn't have happened without him. Charles Hamilton Houston wasn't just a lawyer. He was a strategist, a fighter, a man who turned the law into a weapon against racism. He knew America would never do the right thing willingly, so he made it undeniable. If we're going to talk about civil rights, we have to talk about him. Because before there was a movement, there was a blueprint. Say his name, Charles Hamilton Houston.
So I just came back from the gym, and while I was there, I got to thinking. Black Americans make up just over 13% of the United States population, but they make up almost 40% of the prison population. Many white people will tell you that that's a culture issue, which is just code speak for they believe that the black race is inferior. But let's trace history into present day. At the time of the 13th Amendment, not all states had prisons, but after the 13th Amendment, which made slavery and indentured servitude acceptable as punishment for crime, the United States created laws called the Jim Crow laws, which basically made it illegal to be black. And every single state started investing in their prison systems and targeting Black Americans. Fast forward to the Civil Rights Act of 1963, which abolished blatant racial discrimination within laws. There was a huge population of Black Americans in prisons because the United States had been targeting them. Were reparations given? Were Black Americans freed? No. A decade after the first Civil Rights Act, the United States privatized prisons, which means the U.S. made it even more profitable to throw United States citizens behind bars. And the more black people that have felonies, the less rights that they have. And then the United States started targeting Black Americans once again with the war on drugs. In the words of John Ehrlichman, assistant to the president for domestic affairs, I quote, "We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be black, but by getting the public to associate blacks with heroin, we knew we could disrupt those communities. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did." End quote. The United States keeps finding new ways to target black communities. The prison system negatively affects all of us, however, it disproportionately affects Black Americans. Learn up.
White colonizers didn't like sharing things, and they knew the quickest route to gentrification was to completely submerge cities underwater. So we're going to discuss the 6 black towns that have been buried because Black History Month is important. And I am late because my children keep bringing home the plagues, and no one is more sorry about that than I am. So by the late 1800s, there were many black towns that were thriving. It was still tough post-emancipation, but they were coming together, they were bonding and creating these flourishing communities. Amber Ruffin covers this phenomenon of the disappearing black towns. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most well-known spots, but probably not the well-known history of Oscarville, which was built in Forsyth County, Georgia, under what is now known as Lake Lanier. Oscarville was born out of the post-Reconstruction era. Not all of the residents were black, but most of them were. And by 1910, there were 1,100 black residents living there. 58 of them were landowners. Over 100 were renting farms to grow crops on. It was a mostly agricultural community. They were well known for the production of their poultry, and the area was also a recreational area for boating. And as was the case back then, all it took was for a group of white people to accuse a group of black people, and an angry mob ensued, and the town was burned down. Thousands of people fled in fear for their lives because their entire livelihood had just been burned down to the ground. In the 1950s, roughly 40-ish years after the white people pushed the black residents out of Forsyth County, out of their small community of Oscarville, the Army Corps of Engineers built Lake Lanier, which resulted after a dam was built, and it's like a whole process involving hydroelectricity that I'm not going to get into today. Whatever wasn't burned in 1912 in Oscarville was eventually flooded over, so remnants of the town still exist today under Lake Lanier, and that is why I would never willingly go swimming in Lake Lanier.
I'm willing to bet big money that you were not taught that there was a successful government overthrow, coup d'etat, if you will, in the United States. And if I were to bet that money, I would win. I would win. I know this because that said coup d'etat, insurrection, government overthrow, massacre happened in North Carolina. It happened in Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898. In 1898, Wilmington was one of the most thriving cities in this state, one of the more thriving cities in the Southeast, and it was the largest and most profitable city in the state at the time due to its access to the ports. They do not call Wilmington the port city for nothing, okay? Also during that time, Wilmington was an anomaly in the South. It was a mixed race city where black folks had land, they had businesses, they were in elected positions, they were elected officials, they were in charge of newspapers, and all of that. And in that year, in 1898, there was an election year. And the editor of one of the newspapers in Wilmington, I want to say it was the Daily News, his name was Alex Manley. He wrote an op-ed really speaking out against post-Reconstruction United States. And the white supremacist groups in Raleigh at that time, they were not rocking with it. It's important to note that during this time, this is before the political parties switched. So what we refer to now as Republicans were then referred to as Democrats, and what we refer to now as Democrats were Republicans. That's important. The Democrats in 1898, along with the white supremacist groups, KKK, all that, rode down on their horses to Wilmington and set fire to that city. If they did not kill black people were run out of town, or they were pushed into a small concentrated area. So when we talk about the importance of knowing your history, there are things like that in this country, there has been a government overthrow. There's been a coup, and a successful coup at that. And for a lot of us, it happened not too far from us. I grew up in Wilmington. My ancestors, my grandparents, they're from Wilmington. So for me, I learned through oral history. As many black folks do, we pass down our history through storytelling. I didn't learn about this until I got to higher education, and I decided to take an Africana Studies course on my own free will. It wasn't taught to me in primary school. It wasn't taught to me K through 12 or anything like that. And I think that's even more alarming considering the fact that I grew up in the place where the shit happened. Okay? And the lasting implications of that drastic shift, that massacre in Wilmington, still present themselves today. Wilmington is a mostly white city. A very affluent area at points in certain places. But you want to know the areas that aren't affluent? The areas that they deem the ghetto and the hood? Those are the areas that the black and brown people who weren't killed or ran out of town were pushed into. So then, because systems operate, the systems are not broken. These systems operate exactly how they're designed to operate. So when you push those people into that area, then what do? You deplete them of their resources. You deplete them of their access to things that are going to help them advance themselves and better themselves. You take away their land. You strip them of everything that you can. And over the next 120 plus years, you don't do much to acknowledge, to give back, to reconcile, to rectify. Because in order to acknowledge that the shit happened and really acknowledge that it happened means that you got to reconcile with the fact that it did happen. And you have to reconcile with the fact that the implications of what did happen are still lasting today. See, we were all taught about Tulsa, Oklahoma, And for good reason. We needed to know what happened. But it was harder to hide Tulsa than it was to hide Wilmington, North Carolina. So when I tell people that my racial identity development didn't happen until I left that city, it's not accidental. It's by design. It is by design. Know your history. We could talk more about Wilmington all day long. The only thing that they have to commemorate 1898 right now as a city. People independently have done their own things, created their own projects. There's an amazing documentary called Wilmington on Fire that breaks all of this down, right? But the city, the state, yeah, they put up a statue that I don't even think has a plaque. It might have a plaque, but it's a small statue with no context or connection to what happened whatsoever.
Anyways, these are the clips I have for you guys. Welcome back. And let me know in the comment section, is 70% of Americans, especially Black Americans, are aware of this history? I want to know in the comment section, because this is a deep truth that is actually revealed. And the truth will keep unfolding himself as far as I'm concerned. No matter how far, no matter how long, no matter how we're trying to cancel, rubbish, delete, bury, burn libraries, and so on and so forth, more truths are still going to be unfolded, because you see, one sweet part of the spirit of the Black Americans that they have right now is the fact that they are not willing to back up until they win. I'm so excited, to be honest. Not excited because some of the histories were so awkward, but I'm happy that a lot of eye-opening is happening. And I just wish that this eye-opening that is happening now was there 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. I think a lot of things would have been achieved. You can imagine a particular history that just happened 107 years ago. It is not even too far as I'm concerned, because we still have some people right now that are aged at 107 years. And imagine what actually happened, turning a woman upside down just because she supported her husband. Just a whole lot that we can't even bring. There are some histories that when we even look at it, we just tell ourselves, don't even bring this here, right? So that YouTube will not have issues with you. It is well. Victory belongs to Black Americans, and that is what we keep praying for. And that is why I keep thanking these white people that knows that this particular thing is wrong. And they will come to tell you that, yes, I do not agree with this. This is wrong. This is not supposed to be done. This is not supposed to be this way. This is not supposed to be that way. And let me know what you think about this video in the comment section. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. Like this video, drop me your comments. And lastly, do not forget to share. I'm excited. The second to the last video I actually filmed got me emotional, but right now I think my spirit is a bit lifted, and yeah, we are moving forward whether they like it or not. You see, people of my color, we're definitely going to be achieving every single thing. Credit belongs to original creators of every clips and stitches we use in our today's epic. I'm sending Black Americans hug, kisses, just tell you guys that I love you guys so much, and this is just for educational purposes. Like I said, I stand a chance to be corrected in the comment section. We do not cry, we do not fight, we just get corrections and then get moved on with it, right? And subscribe, like, comment, and share. And with no further ado, I'm going to be saying bye, and I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye guys, I love you. Mwah.